I'm happy to see a few new faces. How many of you seen me for the first time? Okay. So got new customer. Now I believe this topic is actually very apt and quite pertinent in this material time, because stress is faced by everyone. And to a certain extent, some of us face it a little, some of us face it a lot. And we all realize that stress is a cause for many of our maladies and illness and trouble in lives. And until and unless we learn how to manage this, control this, reduce it, we will never be free from it. But since we are all of the Buddha's teachings, it is very important that we try to find out how we can use the Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha, in order to help us condition our minds and reduce our stress. And we all know that stress is one of the major factors in a lot of diseases. For example, cancer. If only we can reduce the element of stress, there's a high chance that we will not have to face cancer, unless, of course, we say it is hereditary, it is part of our DNAs. But to trigger this within us is still the element of stress. And we know that our bodies, as we all know in the Buddhist teachings, is that we are comprised of two forms of energy. One is called the physical energy, rupa. Rupa means matter. And the other one is called mind, or Dhamma, which means mental energies. So we are a combination of Nama and Rupa. Two forms of energy coming together, reacting, combining, and thus creating what we call a psychophysical being. And all of us are psychophysical. Exactly as we have a body, but there is a mind that is actually running up and down here that causes us to be alive. But our body or physical elements is subject to impermanence. In other words, it deteriorates, it grows old, and is prone to being attacked or deterioration. In other words, we fall sick as a result of failure of our organs and being attacked by viruses and even willful force like accidents and so on. But the body, as it's left behind in the separation of the mind and matter, the mind continues, and thus it gets reborn. In other words, it combines with another physical form, and a new combination then takes place, thus creating what we call a new birth. Of course, the new birth then gives rise to all the ills and dukkha, or sufferings, that we all experience. Old age, sickness, death, frustrations, anger, jealousy, and difficulties in life. So therefore, putting the mind aside, which we can condition by practicing quite a number of our techniques, for example, meditation, good philosophy of life, and good habits, we also need to take care of this physical form. But this physical form is also a mass of energy, which we commonly call the four elements, which is called earth, water, wind, and fire. Our body comprises of these four. Now what is the first one? Earth. Now earth is something like a heap of flour, particles. You can call it earth particles, you can call it molecules and solid particles. Now, as you can see a heap of flour, and you blow, it flies all over the place. That means it's not bounded together. But we add water. In other words, on a heap of flour, you add water, and then you knead it. Then you create dough. You create flour dough. And from that dough itself, then you can get forms, shapes, and create what we call a body. But when all these molecules and elements comes together, bound together by the virtue of water, then it starts to react. It repels and it attracts, like any electromagnetic particles. And then you get orbits. You get protons, electrons, which will then orbit around a neutron. And these are all elements, or what we call activities of elements. So you notice that if you talk about magnesium, you talk about what you call iron, you talk about silver, they are basically molecules, and if you look deeper, they are actually little balls of energy orbiting around a central neutron, and thus create what we call an atom. And then from that atom gathered together to create another form called the molecules. And from that molecules then become a form or a body, depending on how it's combined, different types of bodies. But as it was bounded together, because of that protons, electrons, it has this ability to have what we call attraction and repulsion. So it starts to hit each other and react. It's like our Earth revolving around the sun and with all the other fellow planets. And then we are attracted by an attraction, we call it gravity, which pulls it in and then eventually attracts to the center, which is the sun. And then we revolve around and round in very cyclic, systematic, rhythmatic order. And that is part of the natural laws. Later on, when you study the Buddha Dhamma, you will realize that there are actually 4 cosmic laws, or the law of natural orders. And Buddhist word we use is called niyamas. Right? Then when this starts to react, it starts to repel and attract, you create what we call motion. There is movements. The heart starts to pump, the blood starts to flow, the lungs starts to breathe, and thus create motion, which commonly we call it wind element. Feng, wind. And because of this reaction and attraction and repulsion, as it hits against each other, it creates what we call heat. Because of the fusion, thus you create what we call fire. So if you look at the 4 elements in total, it's actually balls of energy hitting each other, reacting, repelling, attracting, creating what we call earth, water, wind, and fire. And these 4 elements must be balanced. Because if it is not balanced, that's why you are in dis-ease. You are not at ease. That's why the word came out, disease. Dis-ease means elements not balanced. And then bring us to the understanding that, well, this is part of our Oriental medicine. Our Oriental medicine is that whenever you are in dis-ease, or you are sick, or you are not well, you will notice that the medication that is given to you is not antibiotics, but it is balancing the earth, balancing the water, balancing the wind, and balancing the fire. And when these elements are balanced back again, then it is in harmony, and when it is in harmony, then you are free from that disease. And then your body has that strength, that immunity, or that ability to fight off any foreign bodies, which is the bacteria, which is the virus, and so on. So you'll notice that when you go to a Chinese traditional medicine, you basically are given medication or herbs to balance up your 4 elements first. And once it's balanced, then your body will fight it. Your own body will fight it, and your own body will then develop its own immunity. You don't need antibiotics. Of course, Western medicine, when you talk about wind, you talk about fire, you talk about water, they all laugh at you. Where got hong one? Where got sui one? Where got what you call fire for? That means when you are having fever, that means your fire is more in your body system. That's why you have fever. Your body temperature goes up. When you have water, and you get what we call swellings, water retentions, and that is when you get disease. When you have wind, or your feng sap, you create a lot of what we call disease. So in order to cure you, they will find a medication or herbs that will then reduce it. So therefore, understanding the mechanism of our body energies, then we must learn how to balance it. But most of the time, there is an external element which will then come and disturb and disrupt the balance of that 4 elements. And that external factor is called stress. When you are in the state of stress, your energy will then start to become blocked. Your energy will then start to be disrupted. Your energy flow, the Chi, will then start to have what we call difficulties to move from point to points. And as it's just not able to push, as not able to communicate, as not able to actually flow properly, that is when it creates blockages. And when it creates blockages in your energies, the Chi, then you will then have what we call inflammation. And when you have inflammation, then you get pain. And that's where you are sick. Let's look at the disease called cancer. Now, what is cancer? Cancer is when you have stress applied, thus disrupting the discharge of toxins. Remember, our body is a very intelligent mechanism. It can actually self-heal itself, self-clean itself, self-arrange and self-align. Whenever there is being a disbalance, it will then move and try to balance itself up. But when you have the applicant of stress, then it loses its ability. Therefore, the IWK inside us, trying to remove all the toxins, we remove our toxins from a lot of perforations, top, bottom, everywhere. And we remove them regularly. Through our urine, through our feces, through our sweat, through our breathing. But the moment it's being disturbed, the toxins then gets accumulated. That means to say like IWK or what do you call, Alam Flora didn't come to your house to discharge your rubbish. So see how the rubbish piles up. And that is when your organ starts to accumulate. And when it accumulates, it starts to grow wild. It starts to grow haywired. And thus creating what we call accumulation of toxins, which then develops into tumors. And the tumors will then be a blockage to whatever energies that you're flowing. Therefore, you get what we call pain. And it can spread. And thus, we then suffer as a result until it finally collapses the system, collapses the organs. And then we are not well. And it can even be fatal. And we can die as a result of that. So you see the element of stress here. And most of the time, some of the treatments that you go for is to try and distress it, although you have already got stage 2, stage 3, and even stage 4. The doctor says, I'm sorry to say that you have only 6 more months to go. Are you now going to sink into further stress? Or are you now going to say, well, I accept it. If I'm given 6 more months, this will be the 6 months of the best of my life. And I'm going to go Himalaya. I'm going to go to see the Aurora Borealis. I'm going to go for my cruise. I'm going to enjoy my family quality time. Your mind then starts to ease up. Your mind then starts to relax. Your mind then starts to become de-stressed. Compared with the anxiety, the desperation, the anger, the disbelief that this is happening to you, you decided to say, well, let it be. If it is time, it's time. And I'm ready to go. If it happens, I have accepted the impermanence of my existence. Again, later on we'll fall back on what the Dhamma teaches us on all these philosophies. And as our mind eases up and relax, that 6 months can become 6 years. And suddenly 6 months later, you went to check, the doctor just says, I'm in total disbelief. I thought you are already gone by now. And yet you are still here alive, and the cancer tumor seems to have diminished and become smaller. And most of us call these miracles because we did a lot of prayers. We did a lot of reflections on our religious principles. We did a lot of what they call appeals to the Almighties and also the Devas. And we believe our prayers are answered. But the key to all this is that you have managed to remove the stress by deflecting your minds. And let not your mind dwell on that desperate, unhappy moments and causes. And finally being able to accept. And again, the key to a lot of release is the acceptance of the phenomena that arises in our life. The changes that is taking in our life. Can you accept that change? Managing changes is a very important topic. And I think for those of you who have attended one of my talks, which I say the art of managing changes is the key to develop our good sentient life. Now let us go on to the topic. Now the reason why we have a lot of stress is because we are all involved in a rat race. And what do we mean by rat race is that we start to compare. Next door got Mercedes, I must also got Mercedes. Next door gone for holiday and watch Aurora Borealis, I must also do that. Next door has this, I must also have. And when you are in a state of comparison, you are in a race. So are you comparing now? Are you doing a lot of comparison? Are you allowing yourself to start comparing, or you say, well, let it be. If others are fortunate enough to have that good fortune of life, well and good. Congratulations. I'm rejoiced with you. Mudita. Mudita means altruistic joy. You share the joys of others. And if you can look at it and say, no two persons are the same. Therefore, if one person is advantageous, the other person could be disadvantaged. And I accept that disadvantage. I allow myself to think in that manner. Then you slowly withdraw from the rat race. You become minimalist. You become simplistic. You become humble. Again, you notice that these are the qualities that we want to develop as a Dhamma-farer, as a Buddhist follower. And we will see the improvements in our life as a result of all this practice and reduction of our desires, craving. Again, as we all understand the Four Noble Truths, craving was the biggest culprit that causes us to be born again and again. Craving is the greatest culprit that actually creates all the defilements in our minds. And the only way to stop all this is to stop craving, the eradication of craving. The Four Noble Truths is very evident there. So when we work harder, we earn more money, we buy more things, and we keep on going, not knowing when is the end. Isn't that true? Accumulation of wealth has no limits. When you are young, you tell your father, you say, if only you can buy me a two-wheel bicycle, kayu saja, I will be the happiest person. Few years later, after kayu already too much, then you say, that two-wheel not enough, must add motor inside. Then you ask for a motorcycle. And then a few years later, you say, now two wheels not good enough, you must have four wheels, more balance. And you can fetch more people. And thus you buy a car. And you say a simple car is okay. Then you start to go up the ladder. And then eventually you say you are now going to have what we call a helicopter. Because to travel from place to place, point to point, and it's better to fly, avoid traffic jam. Limitless. That's why we call Tan Hen Fan Nao, greed, hatred, delusion, has no limits. And when there is no limits, that's the reason why we have what we call greed, anger, and delusion. If only we know where the limits are and able to tolerate yourself without reaching for the limits, and you accept whichever position you are able to achieve, you are actually free a lot from the rat race and also from the stress. So we are all working adults, and even students who are in the universities, they are all facing some kind of a stress of their own, each his own. And this has actually affected a lot of people, created a lot of diseases, created a lot of discomfort. And we must learn how to manage it. If we don't learn how to manage it, then you will have to succumb to some of the disease and discomfort. So what is stress? A stress is a state of mental and emotional strain or suspense as you suffer. And it can be both physical and mental. So what are the causes of stress? Work-related problems. I think most of you are aware of what you are facing. Family problems, right? Relationship problems. All sounds very familiar, isn't it? Financial problems. Loneliness. It can also be a very stressful event. Health problems. Death of a close person which you cannot accept the departure. Lack of sleep and inclement weather. Now let us go to one by one. We are all here not because we want to be blessed so that we can go to heaven. We are all here because we want to be in pursuit of a happiness that can last. We all know that the happiness that we have been experiencing and enjoying, they are all very fleeting. Because they're attached to some conditions, they're attached to something which we hold, which we enjoy, which we say is mine, ours, and so on. But when that object deteriorates and slowly dissipates and disappears, that cause for that happiness then also same thing disappear. You may say that, no, when you got married, wow, I will be the happiest person in the world. 7 years later, you say that was the most terrible time of my life. It can happen. The happiness can dissipate and disappear. When you own your first car, wow, you polish every day. After a few years later, you see whether you polish once a month or you polish once in 6 months. The happiness accrued is very dependent on the object that gives rise to it. And that object can deteriorate. That object can change from young to old, from new to dilapidated. And when it changes, and you cannot accept, I want it to be young forever. You want your wife, you want your husband to be young forever. Sorry lah. One fine day, they have to be old man and old lady. And then you say, wow, I sleep beside an old lady. I sleep beside an old man. Well, you have to accept it. Otherwise, you sleep outside. So the pursuit of real happiness is to look at objects that can give rise to a permanent set of happiness. And what is that? Nothing. It is only nothing that can actually give rise to real happiness. Kong. Nothingness means at the end of the day, all this boils down to nothing. Much odo over nothing. You fret over it, you worry over it, you get angry over it, but at the end, that is just nothing to fret about, nothing to worry about, and nothing to be unhappy about. And if we can accept that there is actually nothing for me to be unhappy about, nothing for me to fret about, nothing for me to be angry about, that arises in you happiness. And that happiness is now being classified with a new title, and it's no longer called happiness. It's called bliss. Enlightenment is bliss. Nirvana is bliss. It's not happiness. It's actually a good sense of good feelings attached to nothing. So we are now going to try and move into that direction. But of course, it takes a long time. Today says, I give up, I give up this, I give up that. Tomorrow say, I want. You go back to the same habits and go back to the same desires. And it is a, what you call roller coaster kind of journey that we are all experiencing. It's ups and downs. We call it the snake and ladder game. You know snake and ladder game? When you move, you say, wow, you get the ladder. So the ladder push you up. Move, you get the snake head. Ayo, come down. And then again, you go up, you come down, go up until you come to box number 96. 96. Take the dice. Ayo, 6. So 97, 98, 99, 100. Still got 2 more. So you got to move backwards. So you become 99, 98, 98, one snake head waiting for you there. And then you move down. And these are what we call the samsaric experiences that we all have. When we meet somebody which we have inspiration from, we improve ourselves. And after that, when we meet somebody who tempts us into a lot of vices again, boop, you fall back again. So we are in this snake and ladder game all the time. Until one fine day, as we all in the Buddhist circle says, attain your first stage of sainthood. Sotapan. And what do you mean by sotapan? Sotapan means a stream enterer. Normally when we stand beside a stream, a very refreshing stream, very nice, very, what do you call, comforting. So you put one foot in. Ooh, nice. Take it out. Put the other foot in. Ooh, nice. Take it out. You keep on doing this. Enjoy and let go, enjoy and let go. At the end of the day, you are still on the same point of the riverbank. Until one day, when you put one foot in, and then you say, well, why not I put the other foot in also? And that's both the feet are in. You have entered the stream. In other words, it's a matter of how the stream carries you. So as long as we are not entered the stream, you will be snake and ladder. On, off, but still on the same spot and never improving. So in the pursuit of real happiness, you need to have a lot of trial and tribulations, and at the same time, the patience, the tolerance, and the understanding in order to move towards it. We are searching our true north, and at the end of the day, we want to be the happiest person. Happy not enough, we want to be happiest. And we all know in records, factual, that the happiest man in the world is a person who owns nothing. A monk who is carefree, who has no what you call possessions, he has renounced, and he moves around his course of life teaching, discussing, sharing, helping. And he has no woes and worries. He has no enemies to attack on him. He doesn't experience losses. He doesn't experience ill fames. Research has tested on this man, a Lama, Matthew Ricard, and he is now identified as the happiest man in the world. And many people are surprised. All the billionaires are surprised. I thought when I own so much things, I should be the happiest man. But the fallacy is the opposite. And there are countries which now don't measure by GDP, gross national products, or what they call GNPs. But they are now going for GNH, gross national happiness. How happy is the country? And Bhutan has been identified as the country with the highest GNP. The people are simple, humble, and happy, compared with US, Europe, most modern, most military powerful, most billionaires. But you look at the homeless, the suffering, the crimes, and all the difficulties that they are facing today. So wherever there's harmony, joy is present. Wherever there's a feeling of harmony, happiness is found. Where there is unity, growth is present. Wherever there is feeling of unity, love is found. So that is when we have to unite and try to get as many people as possible to have that same philosophies of life. And that's why I give rise to what we call the peace movements, to try and promote peace. Our world is now getting crazy. Everybody is so hawkish and wants to fight. Smallest irritation, they say, I want to fight you already. And thus, we talk nothing about peace, and we don't treasure peace. But it is only when you have peace amongst all in unison, and that is only when you get what we call the pursuit of real happiness. Otherwise, your happiness again will be disrupted. So we have to train our mind to be skillful. And we want to use these Buddhist teachings in order to do that. And the first one is called the art of letting go. Second is called the management of changes. Third is anger management, because anger can give rise to a lot of troubles. You can accidentally manslaughter another being. You can accidentally destroy other people's property just because you couldn't control your anger. You can also destroy your relationships by just saying something which you actually want to tarik balik, tak boleh lagi. Feng Shui, this one is an element which we have to understand, and how to align our energies in order to have what we call the most positive environment and experience the environment, so that we can pacify, use the external factors to pacify our minds. Remember, you are not the only speck of energy here. You are actually a dot within a whole mass of universal energies. And the whole universe is actually one big mass of energy. And that big mass of energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to another. And if you have less of this, you have more of that. You have less of that, you have more of this. Conservation of mass. E equal mc square. Albert Einstein has already declared the conservation of energy. But a lot of people don't understand this. E equal mc square. What does it mean? E equals mong cha cha. Because you can't understand. Our human mind somehow or other is limited. You need a genius to come and tell us. Right? And laughter is also one of the ways to distress. But don't listen to Jocelyn Chia's jokes. Listen to better jokes. There are many, what do you call a comedian which gives rise to positive thinking. Laugh. Watch Charlie Chaplin. Though it is slapstick, but you laugh and you release all your stress. Laughter is the best medicine. And imagine if you are sick and all your friends comes and don't say, how are you? How are you getting today? Rather than they come in and tell you jokes and then you laugh together. And then when they go back, you feel better, isn't it? But when they come and ask you, how are you? How are you? Wow, you feel that, oh, you're making my, what you call my disease worse. Because I feel so depressed after that. Right? Positive thinking is very important because positive thinking will lead to positive events. These are simple facts of law of attraction. If your mind is positive, you'll find that surrounding the creation of your mind's events will all be positive. If you are happy, you will always meet with happy events. That's why the Buddha says, don't worry, be happy. Good things will happen along the way. And lastly, of course, one step at a time. Don't become muddled and do so many things at one time that you lost track of it. And at the end of the day, it becomes very stressful when you don't meet your deadlines. But you are able to do it one step at a time. Your task will be finished. So these are very good tips, and let's eventually move slowly to see how the Buddha's teachings help us on this. Now let's go to the technique of art of letting go. Now remember, we were talking about kong or nothing. When we say there's nothing for you to worry about, because at the end of the day, if someone were to scold you, someone were to criticize you, someone were to attack on you, or something bad that is going to happen, at the end of the day, if you dwell on it, it will disturb your minds. But are you able to deflect it and put it one side and think of positive events, think of happy moments, think of good things in your life? And our mind is such, under the natural laws, that we can only do one thing at one time. Our mind can only have one thought at one moment of time. When you are happy, you are not unhappy. When you are unhappy, you are not happy. You cannot be happy and unhappy at the same time. That is called xiao liao. So therefore, when we want to be happy, then don't be unhappy. Of course, if you want to be unhappy, then don't be happy. So therefore, when the grasping of the mind, because our mind is such that we move moment to moment, it is actually moment, rising and falling. And because we are able not to realize it, because it happens fast, in nanoseconds. And that is the strain of our thoughts. Rising, falling, rising, falling, rising, falling, rising, falling. It's only through mindfulness that we slow it down. One of the art of meditation is to be able to watch the rising of your thoughts and the subsidence of your thoughts, and everything slow down. And when you're able to slow down, then you're able to trace. And when you're able to have that habit, when you're about to get angry, you can see anger coming up, coming up, coming up. And then you say, oh, climax of my anger. And then anger going down, going down, going down. Breathing in, breathing in, breathing in. And then breathing out, breathing out, breathing out. You watch every moment as the thoughts evolves. And therefore, when you are able to actually have this control over the moments, then you can watch the anger, watch the defilements, watch the thoughts as it rise and disappear, as it appear and disappear. Of course, while watching this, you get enlightenment. Because eventually you will come up to the three characteristics of all phenomena, called anicca, anatta, and dukkha. Because you will realize the impermanence. It never remains rising. it will have to fall. It never remain falling. It has to rise. You never remain breathing out because you have to breathe in. You never remain breathing in because you have to breathe out. If you try remain breathing in and don't breathe out, dukkha, dukkha, dukkha. So because you are able to see it in that manner, then your mind then is able to realize that actually, why am I attached to something which eventually is going to change the next moment? Why am I attached to a phenomena which will deteriorate from one form to another? Why am I attached to my parents when eventually they have to leave us? Why am I attached to the young lady that I married? Because one fine day she will grow old. And because you are able then to accept it, then you are able then to know that these are what we call some phenomena that don't get attached to it. Let go. 放开. 放下. All the events are like that. Every phenomena is like that. It will appear and it will disappear. Just allow time. Because anything that goes up will come down. Of course, anything come down will also go up. It's like stock market also like that. So when the stock market is down, don't worry, one day will come up. So see whether you got patience or not to wait for it. But when it's up, be careful, it will come down. Because anything that goes up will come down. So therefore, when you are much aware and mindful of this phenomena, the mind is totally different. Your thinking process is also different. That you are saying that, well, there's nothing for me to grasp. Because this grasping mind arrests it. But if you are able to say, let go. Don't grasp it, let it go. It will go away. Then you then moved into stability of the mind. And this is one of the virtues that we developed. It's called upekkha. Upekkha means equanimity, stability. Because every time someone criticizes you, that frequency in your mind will you are stupid. You are so ugly. But when that word comes in and say, you are ugly, you are stupid, and then you say, huh, stupid? I don't hear it anymore. It's gone. Transient. Disappeared. So if it doesn't still appear, then am I ugly? Am I stupid? It's just transiency of words, transiency of sound, transiency of vibrations. So when it comes up, you want, instead of grasping, you say, okay. It hits, it goes up. It hits, it goes up. So you have what we call a reflective mind. No longer simpan dendam dalam hati. When you don't have that simpanan or storage, where is the unhappiness? Where is the worries? Where is the discomfort? So you are no longer in stress if you are in that. So we have to learn the art of letting go. 放开, 放下, let go. And that is verily found in the Buddha. Renunciation, detachment. Don't attach and don't crave. Try not to crave. Let it go. If you can, good. If you cannot, never mind. Can you use this word, never mind? Can you have that attitude of never mind? If you can, a lot of problems solved. So that is again another training. Like we all say, everything changes. You change from young to old. You change from what you call healthy to sickness. And you change from a person who is alive to a person who is dead. Old age, sickness and death are changes. And these are the major changes that has disturbed us for countless lives. And we are trying to avoid it, but we can't. Because the craving force keeps on pushing us, causing us to be born again and again. And every time we have birth, 有生就有老，有生就有病，有生就有死. So the only way to try and run away from old age, sickness and death is 没有生. No birth. How to stop? Craving. Because craving is like that voltage, like the amperes that drives this electric current. If we can remove the voltage, remove the ampere, the current ceases to manifest. There is no more electric current. There is no more mental energies when there is no more craving. When there's no more mental energies manifesting as the mental energy, it will not combine with another physical form, thus not creating another birth. Nirvana. No more. Nir. Ni means no more. Varna means become. You no longer become. The energy ceases to manifest as mind and matter. So therefore, cessation of birth and death. Anger management will be able to be achieved if you can watch your mind. And one of the best ways to watch our mind is to actually sit down quietly and watch our breathing first, to calm down ourselves. And after we have finished calming down ourselves, then let us see what arises in our mind. And in Vipassana meditation, we have what we call the 4 bases of mindfulness. We have Kaya Nupassana, Vedana Nupassana, Chitta Nupassana, and Dhamma Nupassana. The 4 base. So therefore, when we watch our mind and says, where is our mind now? Now, because later on I'm going to move into the topic called living in the now. When we say now, means what are you thinking? Where is your mind? Your mind is dwelling on kaya, which is bodily position, walking, sitting, moving your hands, moving your heads. You're aware of all these movements. Then you are mindful of your kaya. Vedana, you are feeling warm, you're feeling cool, you're feeling itchy, you're feeling pain. You feel those, what you call feelings. You are watchful, you are mindful of your feelings. Vedana Nupassana. Then you suddenly have a thought arises. Color orange. An orange color shines in your mind. You see it. You are watchful, you are mindful of the color orange. Chitta Nupassana. And then you say, orange. Orange is the color, the robes of the monks. This coming Monday, tomorrow, I will be doing my dana. Dana, I must go and prepare my food. You developed on that thought. You make a story out of it. That is called Dhamma-nupassana. So where is your mind now? Your mind is on your kaya, your mind is on your feelings, your mind is on your thoughts, or your mind is on your development of the thoughts. So at any one time, you're aware where your mind is like. Your mind is like the monkey. You know monkey? And monkey don't sit still. Short while only, maybe you can sit. But it will run away. And your mind is like that. So what you do is, you put a chair, one chair. And then you tell the monkey, sit on that chair. And the monkey, of course, listen to you. I go there, you sit on the chair. How long can the monkey sit on that chair? 5 minutes? 10 minutes? He ran away. It's the same thing like when we are doing meditation. Meditate, or breathing in, breathing out. Just now I came out of the house, I forgot to wash my clothes. It's still inside the toilet, And then when I go back, I better, otherwise it will be very smelly. Hey, hello, you should be on breathing in, breathing out. Not on the clothes and not on the toilet. Your mind has ran away. And it's so rampant, running away, come back. Same thing. The monkey came back, sit 5 minutes, run away, then you say, hey, monkey, come back, sit. Monkey sit again, now this time more, 6 minutes. Then run away, come back 10 minutes. Run away, come back 20 minutes. Now can sit for 30 minutes. Your monkey is good. You are now training your monkey to sit still, to be focused, and to have one-pointedness. And that's called samatha meditation. Developing concentration. And when you have concentration, you can use that penetrative concentration to then analyze things. And then you are able to see things as they really are. And that is the power of the mind. It's like the focusing the rays of the sun onto a magnifying glass, into a point, a focal point. And that point is so powerful that it can burn a piece of a paper, and it can even burn the whole forest. Where forest fires are started by just sunlight shining through the dewdrops and landing on the dry leaves, and thus creating what we call a forest fire. The other one is 4 chairs placed in a circle next to each other, and you throw the monkey in, and the monkey cannot get out of the circle. It has to go to one of these 4 chairs. Then you ask, where is the monkey now? Which chair is the monkey? Is it in Chitta Nupassana? Is it in Kaya Nupassana? Is it in Dhamma-inspired? Is it in Vedana Nupassana? So you are watchful. Where is my monkey now? Oh, my monkey is here. Where is my monkey now? My monkey is here. So your exercise the whole day is to watch where your monkey is, and that's called mindfulness. So therefore, when you are able to be mindful of where your thoughts, then you're able to slow down the process as it rise and fall, rise and fall. And then when the anger is rising, you can watch the anger. And you say, you are coming. You are going to raise your hands. Stop it. And you can stop your action, stop your thoughts, stop your speech. That is where you guard yourself. And you are able then to manage the arising of the anger. And if you can manage your anger, that is when you avoid from a lot of troubles. You don't say things which you don't like to say, you don't do things which you don't like to do, and you don't think of things that you don't like to think. And this is a protection. And thus if you are able to do that, and when you don't have anger all the time, you are then able to pacify and make the mind peaceful and calm down the mind. And that's important. Calming down the mind is important because that is a precondition for a lot of other things. I was talking about geomancy, which is actually feng and shui. Remember, you are a speck of energy in the whole wide universe. And whatever happens in your universe, the vibrations that occur some point in the universe can also affect you because you are in the path. You are in the same stream and you are in the same volume of energy. And Albert Einstein says that that volume remains constant. E equal mc squared is a constant. That mass means that mass. And it is the expansion of that mass that creates the universe. And then when it reaches its limit of expansion, it will collapse. That will be the beginning of the cessation of the universe. And we call it doomsday. That means universe will end. But in the course of its contraction, as all the other energies will then start to be compressed, become dense and hibernates, like a seed in the desert, it will cease to exist for a while. But for every contraction, there will be an expansion. For every expansion, there will be a contraction. So the universe is an expanding and contracting mass of energy. And each round of expansion and contraction, in the Dhamma, we call it one kalupa, one eon. And in one eon, it can happen several, what you call constellations and suns and planets. And as they start to spring out, the fusion will cause the development of a sun. And the sun will spill up the magma to create what we call the creation of planets and stars. But later on, when the energy starts to contract, it becomes denser and denser. All this will then be messed up again. And then eventually expansion will then create another new set of universe, Milky Ways and whatever you have. So this is the expansion and contraction. So therefore, as we all know that anything that is in the planets affects us, and anything that affects us also affects the other planets, because we are all in one universe. We are all part and parcel of the universe. A simple example of how another planetary body can affect us. We don't have to go very far. We just look at the moon. Today is new moon. In 15 days' time, you are going to face full moon. But today you are extra religious. You observe vegetarian. You come to the temple and do puja. And some of you retreat to the temple whole day and observe 8 precepts. Why? Why full moon, new moon? Why not any phase of the moon? You do this. It's because the moon on these 2 days has the greatest effect on our human mind. And on the minds of a lot of other beings too. Even animals also are affected. Because of the gravitational pull of the moon. When it's full moon, the gravitational pull is the strongest. And it can even pull the waters of the seas towards one side of the earth, and creating high tide here and low tide there. Why is there high tide on a full moon? It's because gravitation. There is this attraction and repulsion. And if the moon can pull the waters of the world, of the earth, towards one side, it can also affect our body. Because how many percent of our body is liquid? 80%? 90%? And what is the most liquid of our body? It's blood. And if it can raise the tide, it can also raise the tide inside us. And the blood then flows up and more to our heads. So when you have too much blood in your head, you either become very emotional, or either become very effective in your analysis, or you can become mad. And that's why people who become mad on a full moon night is called what? Lunatic. Luna. See the word? The key word is luna. And animals are also affected by the full moon. Their body feels so agitated that they have to let it out. And they howl. Ow, ow, whole night. But that night also can be very emotional also. Very romantic. Other days you say the 3 little words cannot. 讲不出. But on that night can say many times, you know. Because you are more emotionally charged. And the Buddha gained enlightenment on a full moon night. The peak of your thinking process. Because there is more blood, high tide inside you. But because you are not sure where you are, which position you are, either you become mad or you do things which you don't like to do, then you better retreat to the temple. And jaga yourself, keep yourself away from everybody else. And that's why they observe 8 precepts. And they become more religious on this day. And says, on this day I have to guard myself against any action, any speech, any thoughts which may not be intentional. New moon is the opposite, the lowest of it. So because of this, we are saying that since the moon has an effect, so is other planets. Which is the biggest planet of our solar system? Jupiter. What do you call Jupiter in Chinese? In feng shui lah, in feng shui. Tai shui. Fan tai shui. Because that Jupiter, and if you are in the alignment of the Jupiter, and your body system is somehow or other in that manner, you get affected the most. And there are certain alignments of the stars that can affect the characteristics of our being. That's why you are born under the year of the goat. You are born under the year of the bull, the rabbit. This year is rabbit, isn't it? So you are born on certain alignments because it's a 12-year cycle. And this cycle can determine the characteristics of people. Secondly is, of course, if you go under the Western, called Virgo lah, Taurus lah. Yeah, these are in months. They go for months. And in certain part of the month, certain alignments, Sagittarius, there is certain alignment of the stars. And because of that alignment, it then affects the flow of the energies. And that's why we say sometimes when certain things happen on the sun, it affects what is happening on earth. The solar flares, the creating of the solar winds, and thus creating the temperature and creating what we call the wind movements. And if it can create those energies, it can also create disturbance within the energies of a physical form. And that's why we are more careful. And the two most important energies that we always face is because on earth, all the forms that you see, all the what you call geographical features is determined by the wind and the water that creates the shapes, creates the flows, creates the energies that is existing here. And as long as we know how to align, we will free from the powers of this feng and shui. But don't place a frog under your table lah. Don't place a money tree in your living room lah. This one is auto-suggestion. That one nothing to do with. It's human psychologists. These are what we call neuro-linguistic programming, NLPs. I can do it, I will be rich, I will have monies in my house. That one you are auto-suggesting only lah. But when it comes to feng shui, it's actually what we call geomancy. Geo means geographical and astrological, right? So laughter is the best medicine. We all know that this is a fact. Whether you like it or not, this is a fact. That if you laugh a lot, you tend to release a lot of stress. When you release a lot of stress, you feel much better. After a good laugh, how do you feel? Better, isn't it? So always have some friends who are jokers. Then your life will be more merry and happy, right? Don't mix with all the dull fellas, you know, all the very, what do you call, nothing to talk one. And try to find some friends who are jokers, we call it, right? If not, then get yourself ready, prepare yourself ready to have some jokes in your hands. If people tell jokes, you also got jokes to tell, right? So I always keep a library of jokes, right? So that when I'm asked to become an MC, I got my jokes there, you know, ready. Marriage jokes also got, woman jokes also got, man jokes also got. And everybody laughs, everybody enjoys, and you have a lighter moments of life. So beautiful thoughts and positive emotions are the stuff miracles are made up of. A lot of time we say things happen. And because things happen out of your imagination, you call this miracle. But the Buddha says there's no such thing called supernatural. Every phenomena is natural. And because this condition arises, that's why this condition then follows. And if this condition doesn't arise, this condition won't follow. And the cause and effects are always there. So the Buddha never called any events supernatural. That's the reason why he never performed miracles. He only did it on 3 occasions. That one bo pian one. Mo fa chi, because so stubborn, you know. So he has to perform some miracles in order to convince the followers. But on all occasions, he explains and he says that all these are part and parcel of a natural process. It's part and parcel of nature. And we call it the cosmic laws, niyamas. And when we talk about karmas, karma is a natural law. In fact, it's the 3rd natural law, the law of action and reaction, karma niyama. Is that when you have an action, you have an equal and opposite reaction. And when you have that energy being created, it will be stored if it is not exhausted or spent. And thus creating what we call a seed. And that's why we call it karmic seeds. And we sow karmic seeds means we do a lot of good deeds, bad deeds. And these are all translated into a storage, like a potential to take its form. We have passed through many lives, isn't it? We have lived through many lives. And many lives we have done a lot of good things, and many lives we have done a lot of bad things. And these are all stored in an energy form called karmas, or momentum. But commonly we call it seeds of karma, whether it's a good seed or a bad seed. And when the conditions are right, and the soil is fertile, that seed will automatically germinate. In other words, if you have a mango seed, which is have a potential to grow into a mango tree, and you put it in the desert, where there's no water and the sun is too hot, there's no shade, the nutrients is not there, can the mango seed turn into a mango tree? But what if you put water, you add water, you put the shade over it, you put some fertilizer and nutrients, and you take care of it every day? You create the conditions which is conducive for the germination of that mango seed. And when the mango seed finds that the conditions are conducive, without being told, pop, it will pop up. And then eventually it will be a mango tree, and the mango tree will then bear a lot of mango fruits, when the conditions allows. That's why I have a very good topic every time when I give talk. I call it karma management. In other words, you can manage your karmas. We have a lot of good seeds, we have a lot of bad seeds, all waiting for the right condition. Bad seeds will require nitrogen, good seeds require oxygen. So which one are you providing now, oxygen or nitrogen? So if you want your happy seeds and good seeds to arise, to take effect on you, then create the positive conditions. Because positive minds, happy mind, cool minds, calm minds, these are conditions that allows your good seeds to come up and take its effect upon you. The bad seeds finds it not conducive for me, so it remains hibernated. But when the bad seed so happens to pop up, and then you get desperate, you get negative, you get angry, you get so desperate, then the conditions now become more conducive for some more bad seeds. That's why we say, pai su je lai, zhou je lai. Pop, 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 and then you cannot control already. So what do you have to do? The Buddha says the destiny is actually in your hands. You don't subscribe yourself to a fatalistic understanding. I can change my destiny. I can manage my karma by creating the conditions for my good seeds to arise and not for my bad seeds. So whenever you have a bad seeds that arise, you say, okay, I see you. Put it one side, let it go, 放开. Now, think of all the positive events. Be happy, calm yourself down. And when your mind is calm, your mind is peaceful, your mind is happy, your mind is positive, these are conditions for your 贵人, we call it 贵人. Poop, 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 it all comes up, and therefore overwhelming the negative effects of your bad seeds. And when it becomes dominant, then it becomes the order of the day. So if you want good seeds that you have sown before, then create the right conditions. A lot of us sow a lot of good seeds but never create a condition. And at the end of the day, you say, I do so many good things, but still cannot strike lottery one. Inverted comma lah, strike lottery. In other words, you cannot enjoy your fortune of it. It's because you have been desperate, and every says, you know, I cannot enjoy lah, I cannot do this lah, I cannot have this lah. Negative. When you have that kind of mental conditions, then of course. So therefore, always have a good positive mind, happy mind and peaceful mind. And that will then give rise to the arising. Now what happened to the bad seeds which has no chance to come and take its effect? And then you become enlightened. You are now free from it. You have actually escaped from the bad karmic seeds that you have sown in your past. and no chance to arise. And therefore, when you pass into Nibbana, there is no more entity to face it anymore. That is the only way we can remove our karma. Because once karma is created, you have to exhaust it. You have to spend it. It cannot be removed. It cannot be eradicated. Because it's a momentum that is set up, running up here. And it will then find a condition that will then flourish. Think positive, and thus you are now living with nature. Living in harmony with nature is very important, because we have to understand what nature is. And since the Buddha gained his enlightenment from the age of 35 up to his passing away into Nibbana at age of 80, for 45 years, what was the Buddha's teaching? The laws of nature. He's telling us that this is how nature works. The law of karma, the law of germination order, the law of seasons, the law of the mind, the law of the development of the mind. And he says all these are events which you must understand. And once you have the right understanding of these events, you live in harmony with it. And when you are living in harmony with the powers of nature, you are free from the consequences and the punishment of nature. So therefore, we are all talking about the natural laws. Don't go against nature, because nature will then take its effect and punish you. You pollute the earth, you disturb the environment, you create a lot of negative conditions. Eventually this will then come back and haunt you subsequently. So therefore, it's important that we live in harmony with nature all the time. And that's why we say we Buddhists are very naturally inclined. We like to go back to nature. One step at a time. It's very important that you don't get muddled up. Remember, your mind can only do one thing at one time. And since it can only do one thing at one time, which is the most important thing to do now? Which is most immediate. And because it is most immediate, do it. Eventually, when you finish that task, then you move on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And you will realize that all of a sudden you are able to then overcome all your tasks and finish it. But when you are muddled up and don't know what to do, that is when you are not able to complete the task. Same thing like when you are in the exam hall and you forget your formula, then you panic. The formula will never come up. So you say, okay, whatever I can do, I do now. And as I was doing my other questions, then the formula came out. Then I jot it down, and then when I come to the next question, I do that, which I was stuck before. Because you deflect it, you are now able to do your task and complete your exam paper. Lastly, just to end, living in the present relieves a lot of stress. That means now. And sometimes even in meditation also we say, how do you start meditating? Is that when you sit cross-legged and then you tell yourself, what am I doing now? Just focus. I'm sitting, I'm breathing, I'm listening. And when your mind is in these thoughts, you are not on the thoughts of your troubles, you are not on the thoughts of doing bad things, you are not on the thoughts of any negativities, you are not on the thoughts of any desperation or fear. And when your mind is in that state, your mind has the ability to then slowly settles down. It stops churning. Because our mind is like a goldfish bowl full of sediments. And as long as you put the stick in and keep on stirring, that sediments will go round and round and round, and you can't see through. What you do is you stop stirring. Take your stick out and says, okay, I'm not going to put the stick in. And then as the water then stops twirling, stops turning, and as it stops turning, the momentum will then slowly let the sediment settles. And as it settles, the water now becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. And then, can you see through now? Can you see the answers to all your questions that you want to ask? That is the time when you are able to do your things. And therefore, by understanding the present moment, we say that what happened in the past is already gone. And what is going to happen in the future is yet to come. And since you can't control your past and since you can't control the future, what can you do? You control your present moment now. And this is within your control. You can watch what you are doing, you can pacify yourself, you can control yourself. So what you do now, then justify your past, and then prepare you for your future. So which is the most important moments of our life? Is what am I doing now? And that relieves a lot of stress. The moment you think like that, all the stress then slowly dissipates. And each time as you are doing your work, you ask yourself, if you are in front of a customer, and you say, what am I doing now? Okay, I'm talking to a customer, I'm trying to say things to them. Then focus your mind on the customer, and therefore you do not panic, you do not become negative, you say the right things, and eventually you succeed in making the sale. And this technique is very helpful. And the Buddha has always encouraged us throughout all his teachings